The morning rain drummed against the veterinary clinic's windows as Rosalie Chen carefully bandaged a golden retriever's paw. Her movements were precise despite the exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. She'd already completed a 4-hour shift at the coffee shop before arriving here at 7. "Easy, buddy," she whispered to the anxious dog, her voice soothing. "You're going to be just fine." Dr. Williams emerged from the back office, clipboard in hand. "Rosalie, you've got that catering shift tonight, right?" She nodded, not looking up from her work. Between the veterinary clinic, the coffee shop, and weekend catering gigs, she barely had time to breathe. But every dollar counted. Her father's medical bills weren't going to pay themselves, and Tommy needed new textbooks for his advanced placement classes. "You know you're overworking yourself," Dr. Williams said gently. "Your father wouldn't want, my father wants too." "Walk again," Rosalie interrupted, finally meeting his concerned gaze. "The experimental therapy costs more than I make in 6 months, but it's his only shot." The clinic door chimed, and both turned to see a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit enter. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and even from across the room Rosalie could tell his watch cost more than her monthly rent. "I'm looking for Rosalie Chen," he said, his voice carrying an authority that made her straighten instinctively. "That's me." She wiped her hands on her scrubs, suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look. "How can I help you?" The man, who looked to be in his early 30s, studied her for a moment before extending his hand. "Nathan Cross. I have a business proposition for you." Rosalie blinked. "I'm sorry, but I think you have the wrong person." "I don't know anything about business. Actually, I think you're exactly who I need." Nathan's gray eyes were unreadable. "Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" 20 minutes later, they sat in a quiet corner of the coffee shop next door. Rosalie cradled her mug, still trying to process what Nathan had just told her. "Let me get this straight," she said slowly. "You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend for 6 months? In exchange, you'll pay me enough to cover my father's treatment and my brother's college tuition." "That's correct." Nathan's expression remained neutral. "My grandmother has very traditional views about family and stability. According to her will, I need to be in a committed relationship to inherit the estate that funds my company's research division. And you can't just find an actual girlfriend because I don't do relationships." His tone was matter-of-fact. "They're messy, time-consuming, and inevitably disappointing. This arrangement benefits us both. You get the money you need, and I get what I need to continue my work." Rosalie stared at him. "You're serious, completely." Nathan pulled out a leather portfolio. "I've had my lawyers draft a contract. All appearances will be public family dinners, social events, business functions. No physical intimacy required beyond what's necessary for appearances." The amount he'd written on the paper made Rosalie's breath catch. It was more money than she'd see in 5 years of her current jobs combined. "Why me?" she asked. "Surely there are women in your social circle who would." "My grandmother specifically mentioned she wants to meet someone real, someone who works hard and has values." Nathan's lips curved in what might have been amusement. "She saw a photo of you in the local paper, something about volunteer work at the animal shelter. She said you looked like the kind of woman who could keep me grounded." Rosalie remembered that photo. The newspaper had run a small piece about her organizing a fundraiser for abandoned pets. She'd been covered in dog hair and grinning despite being exhausted. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "Of course." Nathan stood, leaving his business card on the table. "But don't think too long. I need an answer by tomorrow evening." That night, Rosalie sat beside her father's hospital bed. Watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, Mr. Chen had been unconscious for 2 days. Following complications from his latest surgery, "I don't know what to do, Dad," she whispered. "Tommy needs this chance at college, and you need that treatment. But pretending to be someone else for 6 months feels like lying about everything we've taught me." Her phone buzzed with a text. From Tommy Ross, got accepted to MIT early admission. Full ride scholarship. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by guilt. Tommy deserved every opportunity, but she knew his pride would never let him accept charity. Scholarship would cover tuition, but not living expenses, books, or lab fees. The next evening, Nathan waited in the same coffee shop corner, checking his watch. At exactly 6 o'clock, Rosalie appeared in the doorway, still in her veterinary scrubs. "I'll do it," she said, without preamble, sliding into the seat across from him. "But I have conditions." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "First, my family can never know this is fake. They think I'm struggling enough without knowing I'm lying to them." Her voice was firm. "Second, I won't change who I am. No makeovers, no pretending to be some socialite. If your grandmother wants someone real, she gets the real me." "Agreed." Nathan's response was immediate. "Anything else?" Rosalie hesitated, then met his gaze directly. "I need to know you're not expecting anything more than what's in the contract. I'm not naive, but I'm also not interested in complications. Neither am I." Nathan's expression was completely serious. "This is business. Nothing more." They shook hands across the small table, sealing an agreement that would change both their lives in ways neither could imagine. The following Saturday, Nathan picked her up for their first public appearance brunch with his grandmother. Had chosen her best dress, a simple navy blue number she'd worn to her high school graduation. "You look nervous," Nathan observed as they drove through the affluent neighborhood where his grandmother lived. "I am nervous." Rosalie smoothed her skirt. "I've never lied to anyone's grandmother before. Just be yourself." That's what she wants to see. Victoria Cross lived in a stately, colonial home surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens. She greeted them at the door, an elegant woman in her 70s with sharp blue eyes and silver hair styled in a classic bob. "You must be Rosalie," Victoria said, studying her with obvious interest. "Nathan has told me so much about you." "Wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Cross." Rosalie accepted the older woman's warm handshake, surprised by the genuine kindness in her eyes. Over brunch, Victoria peppered Rosalie with questions about her work, her family, her dreams. What surprised Rosalie most was how easily the answers came. She found herself talking about her passion for helping animals, her pride in Tommy's achievements, even her hopes for her father's recovery. "Nathan tells me you work 3 jobs, Victoria," said passing Rosalie more fresh fruit. "That must be exhausting." "It keeps me busy," Rosalie admitted. "But I like staying active. There's something satisfying about ending each day knowing you've accomplished something meaningful." Victoria glanced at Nathan, who had been unusually quiet throughout the meal. "And what drew you to my grandson?" Rosalie felt heat rise in her cheeks. This was the part she'd been dreading. "He's very dedicated to his work," she said carefully. "I admire people who are passionate about making a difference." It wasn't entirely a lie. During their brief conversations, Nathan had mentioned his company's research into affordable medical technology. Despite his cold demeanor, there was something genuine about his commitment to helping people as they prepared to leave. Victoria pulled Rosalie aside while Nathan waited by the car. "Thank you," the older woman said quietly. "For what?" "For making him smile." Victoria's expression was warm but knowing. "I haven't seen Nathan truly relaxed in years. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." Rosalie felt a strange flutter in her chest. As they drove away, Nathan had been different during brunch, more open, more human. She caught herself stealing glances at his profile, noting the way his stern expression had softened when he laughed at something Victoria said. "That went well," Nathan said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Your grandmother is lovely." Rosalie meant it. "She really cares about you. She worries too much." But Nathan's tone was affectionate. "She thinks I work too hard and don't spend enough time on personal relationships. Do you?" Nathan glanced at her, surprised by the direct question. "Work is important. Personal connections are." He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "Complicated." As they pulled into Rosalie's neighborhood, a stark contrast to the pristine streets they'd just left, she found herself wondering what had made Nathan so wary of genuine connection. The man she'd spent the afternoon with seemed different from the cold businessman who'd propositioned her in the coffee shop. "Same time, next weekend?" Nathan asked as she gathered her purse. "Actually," Rosalie said, surprising herself, Would you like to have dinner with my family tomorrow? Nothing fancy, just Sunday dinner at home. If we're going to convince people we're together, you should probably meet them. Nathan's hesitation was brief but noticeable. Are you sure that's necessary? Trust me, Rosalie said, opening the car door. If you can survive dinner with Tommy's interrogation and my father's protective instincts, you can handle anything your business world throws at us. As she walked toward her modest apartment building, Rosalie couldn't shake the feeling that their carefully constructed arrangement was already becoming more complicated than either of them had anticipated. Sunday dinner at the Chen household was nothing like Nathan had expected. The small apartment was filled with warm light, the scent of home-cooked food, and the easy chatter of a close-knit family. Mr. Chen, despite being confined to a wheelchair, dominated the conversation with stories from his construction days, while Tommy peppered Nathan with questions about technology and business. So you're the guy who's been making my sister smile, Mr. Chen said, fixing Nathan with a steady gaze. She's been working herself to the bone for years. About time someone noticed how special she is. Nathan felt an unexpected tightness in his chest as he watched Rosalie blush and deflect her father's praise. She moved around the small kitchen with practiced efficiency, serving everyone before herself, making sure Tommy had seconds adjusting her father's position so he could reach his water glass more easily. Rosalie tells me you're working on medical technology, Dr. Martinez said. The family doctor had stopped by to check on Mr. Chen and stayed for dinner. What kind of research? Affordable prosthetics and mobility devices? Nathan replied, surprised by his own enthusiasm as he explained his company's work. We're trying to make advanced technology accessible to people who need it most, not just those who can afford it. Tommy leaned forward, eyes bright with interest. That's incredible. Engineering challenges alone must be fascinating. Nathan found himself drawn into a genuine discussion about innovation and social impact. He caught Rosalie watching him from across the table. Her expression was thoughtful, almost surprised, as if she was seeing him differently than before. Later, as they walked through the neighborhood park where Rosalie often brought rescue dogs for exercise, Nathan found himself opening up in ways that felt foreign but somehow natural. Your family is remarkable, he said, watching Rosalie throw a tennis ball for an energetic border collie mix she was fostering. The way they support each other, the way they love each other, Rosalie supplied, laughing as the dog bounded back to her feet. It's not always easy, but it's what family does. Nathan was quiet for a moment. My parents died when I was 12. Grandmother raised me, but she was so focused on preparing me to take over the family business that I think we both forgot about the family part. Rosalie's expression softened. That must have been lonely. I told myself it made me stronger, more focused. Nathan picked up a stick and threw it for the dog, who abandoned the tennis ball immediately. But watching your family tonight, I realized I might have missed something important. Over the following weeks, their arrangement settled into a comfortable routine. Nathan attended family dinners, helped Tommy with college preparation, and even found himself stopping by the veterinary clinic to pick up Rosalie after her shifts. To the outside world, they appeared to be a couple falling naturally into sync, but it was the quiet moments that began to shift something deeper between them. Like the evening Nathan found Rosalie crying in the hospital parking lot after a particularly difficult day with her father's treatment. Instead of offering platitudes or solutions, he simply sat beside her in his car, letting her lean against his shoulder while she processed her fear and frustration. Or the morning she arrived at his office with coffee and homemade muffins, not because their contract required it, but because she'd noticed he forgot to eat when he was focused on important projects. You didn't have to do this, Nathan said, accepting the still warm blueberry muffin. I know. Rosalie perched on the edge of his desk, something that would have seemed impossibly intimate a month ago. But you take care of everyone else. Someone should take care of you too. The words hit Nathan harder than they should have. He looked up at Rosalie, looked at her, taking in the gentle concern in her dark eyes, the way she bit her lower lip when she was thinking, the unconscious grace with which she moved through the world when had pretending stopped feeling like pretending. The question became unavoidable, the night of Victoria's charity gala. Rosalie had insisted on wearing a dress she already owned, a simple black number she'd bought for Tommy's high school graduation, despite Nathan's offer to buy her something new. "You look beautiful," Nathan said, as she emerged from her bedroom, and the sincerity in his voice surprised them both. The gala was held at the city's most exclusive hotel, filled with the kind of people Nathan had grown up around but never truly connected with. Rosalie moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, equally comfortable talking with prominent business leaders about their philanthropic work and kneeling down to chat with a shy child whose parents had brought her to the family-friendly portion of the evening. "She's lovely," Victoria said, appearing at Nathan's elbow as they watched Rosalie organize an impromptu art activity for several restless children. "And completely different from the usual women you associate with." "We're not really associating," Nathan replied automatically, then caught his grandmother's knowing look. "I mean, we're taking things slowly." Victoria's smile was enigmatic. "Well, whatever you're doing, don't overthink it. The best things in life usually happen when we stop trying to control every outcome." Later that evening, as Nathan and Rosalie danced to the soft jazz ensemble, she looked up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. When this arrangement ends, what happens to your company?" "To the research?" Nathan's steps faltered slightly. "I'll figure something out, find another way to secure funding. But you'll lose months, maybe years of progress." "Why are you asking?" Rosalie was quiet for a moment, seeming to gather her thoughts. "Because I'm starting to understand how important this work is to you. And I'm realizing that helping you succeed feels almost as important to me as helping my own family." Something shifted in Nathan's chest, a warm, unfamiliar sensation that made it hard to breathe properly. "Rosalie, I know what our contract says," she continued softly, "but I need you to know that this stopped being just business for me weeks ago." Before Nathan could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. Ruby Sinclair, a prominent socialite known for her sharp tongue and sharper ambitions, was making her way across the dance floor with deliberate purpose. "Nathan, darling," Ruby said, her smile not reaching her eyes, "I've been dying to meet your mysterious girlfriend, though I have to say, I'm surprised you're dating someone so ordinary." Rosalie felt the familiar sting of not belonging, but before she could respond, Nathan stepped closer to her, his arm tightening protectively around her waist. "There's nothing ordinary about Rosalie," Nathan said, his voice carrying a warning edge. "She's the most extraordinary person I've ever met." Ruby's laugh was cold. "How romantic. Though I do wonder what someone like her could possibly offer someone like you, beyond the obvious novelty." "She offers truth," Nathan replied, his gray eyes never leaving Ruby's face, something that seems to be in short supply in circles like this. As Ruby retreated with a forced smile, Rosalie looked up at Nathan with something close to wonder. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Nathan's voice was quiet but firm. "No one gets to diminish you, especially not in front of me." Drive home was filled with charged silence. When Nathan walked Rosalie to her door, she turned to face him, her heart racing with a combination of gratitude, confusion, and something much deeper. "Thank you," she said, "for defending me tonight, for making me feel like I belong in your world." "You don't belong in my world," Nathan said, and Rosalie's face fell until he continued. "My world is cold and calculating and focused on outcomes instead of people. You belong in something much better than that, Nathan. I need to tell you something." He took a deep breath. "This arrangement, this contract, it's not working." Rosalie's heart dropped. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I can't keep pretending that what I feel for you is fake." Nathan's voice was rough with emotion. "Somewhere between family dinners and charity galas and watching you care for everyone around you with such fierce love, I stopped acting and started falling." The words hung between them in the quiet hallway, full of possibility and terror. "I'm scared," Rosalie whispered. "So am I." Nathan reached up to cup her face gently. "But I'm more scared of losing you than I am of admitting that this became real for me too." When he kissed her, it was nothing like the brief, performative touches they'd shared in public. This was soft and desperate and full of weeks of suppressed longing. Rosalie melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as she kissed him back with equal intensity. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "So what happens now?" Rosalie asked. Nathan smiled, the first completely unguarded expression she'd ever seen from him. "Now we stop pretending and see what's real." 3 weeks later, Rosalie was beginning to understand that real was infinitely more complicated than pretend had ever been. The contract still existed, with 2 months remaining, but everything between them had changed. Nathan no longer maintained careful distance during family dinners. Instead, he helped Tommy with college applications, discussed experimental treatments with Mr. Chen's doctors, and stayed late into the evening simply because he wanted to be there. Rosalie found herself looking forward to their time together with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified her. When Nathan smiled at something she said, when he absent-mindedly took her hand while they walked, when he called just to hear her voice after a difficult day, these moments felt precious in a way that made her chest tight with emotion. She was afraid to name, but the contract cast a shadow over everything. "You're overthinking this," Stella said as they restocked medication supplies at the veterinary clinic. "The man is clearly crazy about you." "The man is paying me to be with him," Rosalie replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "How do I know what's real and what's just him getting caught up in playing a role? Because you know him now." Stella paused in her inventory counting. "The Nathan who shows up here with coffee when you're working double shifts, who spent 3 hours researching wheelchair-accessible gardens so your dad could grow tomatoes again. That's not someone playing a role." Rosalie wanted to believe her friend, but doubt was a persistent companion. The money from their arrangement had already transformed her family's life. Her father was responding well to the experimental treatment. Tommy had everything he needed for MIT, and for the first time in years, Rosalie wasn't constantly worried about making ends meet. What if Nathan's feelings were just gratitude? What if ending the contract meant ending whatever they'd built together? Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Emergency at the office. Rain check on dinner. I'll make it up to you." Rosalie tried to ignore the familiar pang of disappointment. Lately, Nathan had been working longer hours, taking more calls during their time together, seeming distracted even when he was physically present. She told herself it was natural his company was growing. Demands were increasing, but it felt too much like the careful distance he'd maintained. When their relationship was purely transactional, that evening she was fostering a nervous rescue puppy. When her doorbell rang, she opened it to find Judge Harrison, one of Victoria's oldest friends, standing in the hallway with an expression that made her stomach drop. "Miss Chen, I wonder if we might have a conversation." And Judge Harrison was a distinguished man in his 70s with keen eyes and a reputation for seeing through pretense. Rosalie invited him in, her heart racing as she tried to project calm. "I'll get straight to the point," the judge said, settling into her father's favorite chair. "Victoria Cross is one of my dearest friends, and I've been concerned about this relationship between you and her grandson, concerned how," Rosalie managed. "Something doesn't feel authentic." Judge Harrison's gaze was penetrating. "Nathan has never shown interest in serious relationships, and suddenly he's presenting you as the love of his life, just as his inheritance deadline approaches. It seems remarkably convenient." Rosalie felt the blood drain from her face. "Not sure what you're implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating directly that I believe this relationship is a fabrication designed to fulfill the terms of Victoria's will." The judge leaned forward. "What I can't determine is whether you're a willing participant or an unwitting victim." The words hit Rosalie like physical blows. Everything she'd feared, every doubt she'd harbored, was being laid bare by this perceptive stranger.
Oh.
"Victoria doesn't deserve to be deceived," Judge Harrison continued. "She's invested emotionally in this relationship in you. If this is some kind of business arrangement, she has a right to know." After the judge left, Rosalie sat in her quiet apartment. The rescue puppy curled in her lap and forced herself to confront the truth she'd been avoiding. Their relationship had started as deception, and no matter how real her feelings had become, that foundation of lies poisoned everything else. She thought about Victoria's warm welcome, the way the older woman had begun, including her in family traditions, the genuine affection in her eyes when she spoke about Rosalie and Nathan's future. together. The thought of betraying that trust made Rosalie feel physically sick. When Nathan arrived the next morning with her favorite pastries and an apology for canceling dinner, Rosalie was waiting with the contract and a pen. "What's this?" Nathan asked, taking in her serious expression. "I'm ending our arrangement." Rosalie's voice was steadier than she felt. "Judge Harrison came to see me yesterday. He suspects the truth, and it's only a matter of time before others do too." Nathan's face went pale. "Rosalie, we can handle this." We can what?" "Keep lying to your grandmother. Keep pretending. This whole thing isn't built on deception." Rosalie stood, wrapping her arms around herself. "I care about you, Nathan. I care about you so much it scares me. But I can't keep betraying Victoria's trust. And I can't keep wondering if what we have is real or just an extension of our contract. You think I'm pretending?" Nathan's voice was incredulous. "After everything we've shared, everything we've been to each other? You think I'm acting? I think you're a good man who got caught up in playing a role." Tears burned behind Rosalie's eyes. "I think you care about me, but I think you also needed this arrangement to work, and maybe those feelings got confused." Nathan stared at her, something breaking in his expression. "So that's it? You've decided how I feel, and nothing I say matters?" "I've decided that we both deserve better than a relationship built on lies." For a long moment, they stood facing each other across her small living room to people who had found something precious and were about to lose it to fear and circumstance. "Keep the money," Nathan said finally. "The contract is fulfilled on my end. Nathan, keep it." His voice was rough. "Your father needs the treatment. Tommy needs college covered. This doesn't change that." After he left, Rosalie collapsed on her couch and cried until she had no tears left. 2 weeks passed in a blur of work and worry. Rosalie threw herself into her jobs, spending extra hours at the veterinary clinic and picking up additional catering shifts. Her family noticed her subdued mood, but respected her request for space. Tommy was the one who finally confronted her. "You're miserable," he said, finding her staring out the kitchen window on a rainy Thursday evening. "And don't tell me you're fine, because I'm not 12 anymore." "Nathan and I ended things," Rosalie said simply. "Why?" Tommy's voice was genuinely confused. "That guy was head over heels for you. I've never seen someone look at another person the way he looked at you." "It's complicated." "No, it's not." Tommy sat beside her at the small kitchen table. "You're scared because you've spent so long taking care of everyone else that you don't know how to let someone take care of you." The insight from her teenage brother hit uncomfortably close to home. "He's a good man, Ross," Tommy continued. "And he makes you happy in a way I haven't seen since before Dad's accident. Whatever happened between you two, maybe it's worth fighting for." That weekend, Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor who had become something of a confidant, invited Rosalie for tea. The older woman lived alone in a neat apartment filled with photos of a life well lived. "I've been married 3 times, Mrs. Patterson said without preamble, pouring Earl Grey into delicate china cups. "The first time for security, the second time for passion, the third time for love." "What's the difference?" Rosalie asked, grateful for the distraction. "Security is about what someone can provide for you. Passion is about how someone makes you feel. Love is about who you become when you're with them." Mrs. Patterson settled back in her chair. "That young man of yours, which category does he fall into?" Rosalie thought about Nathan helping her father research gardening techniques, about the way he listened to Tommy's ideas with genuine interest, about how he'd defended her against Ruby's cruelty without hesitation. "He makes me want to be braver," she said quietly, "more open, less afraid of asking for what I need." "Then what are you doing here with me instead of telling him that?" Meanwhile, Nathan was struggling with his own demons. Work provided no distraction. Every project reminded him of conversations with Rosalie. Every success felt hollow without her to share it with. Victoria noticed his mood immediately. "You look terrible," she said bluntly when he arrived for their regular Sunday lunch. "What happened with Rosalie?" "We ended things." Nathan pushed food around his plate without eating. "Why?" The simple question hung in the air. Nathan realized he couldn't explain without revealing the truth about their arrangement. And he couldn't bear to disappoint his grandmother. "We wanted different things," he said finally. Victoria studied him with the shrewd intelligence that had made her a formidable businesswoman. Nathan Cross, I've known you for 32 years and I've never seen you happier than you were with that girl. If you let pride or fear or whatever foolish notion is in your head cost you the best thing that ever happened to you, you're not as smart as I raised you to be. That evening, Nathan found himself walking through the park where he and Rosalie had spent so many evenings. The place was full of memories, her laughter, her stories about the animals she fostered, the way she threw tennis balls with such fierce concentration. He was surprised to find her there, sitting on their usual bench with the border collie, Mix she'd been fostering. She looked up as he approached, her expression unreadable. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." Nathan gestured to the empty space beside her. "Mind if I sit?" They sat in silence for several minutes, watching the dog explore the familiar surroundings. "I've been thinking about what you said." Nathan finally spoke, about our relationship being built on lies. Rosalie tensed, but didn't interrupt. "You were right about the foundation," Nathan continued. "But I think you were wrong about what we built on top of it." He turned to face her fully. "Yes, our arrangement started as a transaction. But every Sunday dinner with your family, every conversation about dreams and fears, every moment you showed me what it means to love people fiercely and completely that was real. My feelings for you are the most honest thing in my life." Gathered in Rosalie's eyes. "Nathan, I know you're scared. I'm terrified too, but I'm not willing to lose you because we started in the wrong place. We can build something real together, something honest, if you'll let me." Rosalie looked at this man who had started as a stranger with a business proposition and become someone she couldn't imagine living without. She thought about Mrs. Patterson's words, about Tommy's insight, about the way Nathan had become woven into every aspect of her life. "I love you," she whispered. "I've been trying not to, but I love you so much it hurts." Nathan's smile was radiant. "I love you too, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone." When he kissed her this time, it was with the promise of a future built on truth instead of pretense. The dog barked happily and bounded over, apparently approving of this development. "So what do we do about your grandmother?" Rosalie asked when they broke apart. "About Judge Harrison and the inheritance?" Nathan was quiet for a moment. "We tell the truth. All of it. Whatever happens, we do it honestly." The conversation with Victoria took place the following Sunday. They sat in her elegant living room, holding hands for courage. Nathan explained everything, the contract, the arrangement, the way their feelings had evolved. Victoria listened without interruption, her expression unreadable. When Nathan finished, silence stretched between them. "You lied to me," Victoria said finally. "Yes," Nathan replied. "And I'm sorry." "More sorry than I can express." Victoria turned to Rosalie. "And you participated in this deception?" "I did," Rosalie said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I needed the money for my family, and I convinced myself that no one would be hurt. I was wrong, and I'm deeply sorry for betraying your trust." Victoria stood and walked to the window, looking out at her garden. Nathan and Rosalie waited, hands clasped tightly. "Do you love my grandson?" Victoria asked without turning around. "Yes," Rosalie said simply. "I love him completely." "And you, Nathan? Do you love this woman?" "With everything I am," Nathan replied. Victoria turned back to face them, and to their surprise, she was smiling. "Then you're both idiots for thinking I didn't know." "Wait. What?" Nathan blinked. "Did you really think I'd live to be 75 without learning to recognize genuine emotion?" Victoria settled back into her chair, looking amused. "Yes, your arrangement was obvious from the beginning. But what was also obvious was how quickly you stopped pretending and started feeling." Rosalie felt like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "You knew?" "I suspected from the first brunch. But I knew for certain the night of the charity gala, when Nathan defended you against Ruby Sinclair. The look on his face when she insulted you was pure, protective love. No amount of money could have purchased that level of authentic emotion." Nathan ran a hand through his hair. "Then why didn't you say anything?" because you both needed to figure it out for yourselves. Victoria's expression grew tender. You needed to learn that love isn't about perfect beginnings or flawless circumstances. It's about choosing each other despite complications, about building something real from whatever foundation you're given. She reached for a legal document on the side table. The inheritance was never conditional on a relationship, by the way. That was a fiction I created because I was worried about you becoming too isolated, too focused on work to build a meaningful life. You manipulated us, Nathan said, but his tone held more admiration than accusation. I gave you a nudge toward happiness, Victoria corrected. What you did with that opportunity was entirely up to you. 6 months later, Rosalie stood in Victoria's garden, surrounded by family and friends, wearing a simple white dress that made her feel beautiful. Nathan waited at an arch covered in climbing roses, his eyes bright with love and wonder. The ceremony was small, and Perfect Tommy served as Nathan's best man. Stella as Rosalie's maid of honor. Mr. Chen walked his daughter down the aisle with the help of his new prosthetic leg. Funded by Nathan's company's latest breakthrough in affordable medical technology. I can't believe this is real, Rosalie whispered as they exchanged rings. It's real, Nathan assured her. We're real. Everything we've built together is real. As they kissed to seal their vows, surrounded by the people who loved them most, Rosalie reflected on the strange journey that had brought them together. They had started with a contract based on pretense, but they had chosen to build something infinitely more valuable. Partnership based on truth, respect, and unwavering love. The Border Collie mix, now permanently adopted and renamed Chance, barked his approval from the front row, his tail wagging with the joy that seemed to infect everyone present. Later, as they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Nathan spun Rosalie around the same garden, where they'd shared their first honest conversation about love. No regrets? He asked, pulling her close. Rosalie smiled up at the man who had started as a stranger with a proposition and become her partner in every sense of the word. Not a single one. Their love story had begun with a lie, but it had become the most honest thing either of them had ever experienced. And as they danced, surrounded by family, friends, and the promise of a future built on truth, they both knew that some of the best things in life begin in the most unexpected ways. The contract that had brought them together was long forgotten, replaced by vows that were infinitely more binding and infinitely more freeing. They learned that real love doesn't require perfect circumstances, it only requires two people, willing to choose each other again and again, no matter how complicated the beginning. The end.